This paper seeks to explore what is inequality and how it exists throughout the Caribbean. This paper also seeks to examine factors influencing inequality throughout the Caribbean. This paper also seeks to evaluate how race and gender influences inequality within the Caribbean and encourages social marginalization and stratification. Social inequality should never be viewed in a vacuum but as a social issue which exists within every society. Societies are structured based on social acceptance and the economic strength of each member. Several sociologists and anthropologists have discussed the issue of social inequality and in some cases have suggested ways in which this issue can be limited. This paper will also seek to associate several theories with inequality and society. Social inequality can be explained as the existence of unequal opportunities and rewards granted to different social positions or statuses within a group or society. These groups and/or people are allowed favored treatment or given treatment that is regarded as unfavored. Throughout the Caribbean, evidence exists which suggests that social stratification is a common occurrence. Social inequality could be regarded as a byproduct of a stratified society. There are several indicators which is used determines the extent of inequality within a given society. These include income, wealth, power, ethnicity, occupational prestige, education, race and gender. Income is the earnings from work or investments, while wealth is the total value of money and other assets minus debts. Other important dimensions include power, occupational prestige, schooling, ancestry, and race and ethnicity. This paper will focus on race and gender, their role, the reality of parting inequality in the Caribbean. There are several causes which encourages inequality in any society including the Caribbean. Inequality exists as a result of extreme poverty and excessive wealth within any society. Poverty and wealth exist as a result of educational opportunities, employment, the lack of motivation and skills needed to search for employment and keep such employment. The identified underlying factor which impacts on the quality of life of persons within a society is the availability of employment. Whenever persons are unemployed, they are unable to take care of their families. This creates a void between persons with opportunities to be progressive within a society and persons without. Throughout every society including the Caribbean, social inequality exists. It is a fact that social inequality impacts on every aspect's human existence. Inequality can be blamed for several health conditions known throughout the world. Healthcare, education opportunities and varied social amenities are withheld from many individuals who are deemed as poor. As a result of inequality, many persons may die from disease, accidents, neglect, or violence during their early years. Statistics suggest that wealthy people live 5 years longer than those less fortunate. Throughout every society, the organization and institution of policies help to distinguish the wealthy from the poor. The policy put forward by politicians supports the lifestyle of many wealthy individuals throughout society. Indeed, the wealthy benefit from the way society is organized. As a result, the wealthy tends to encourage politicians to be more conservative on political issues, but more liberal on social issues. The opposite pattern seems to be true for people from poor backgrounds. They tend to be more conservative on social issues, but more liberal on economic issues, tending to favor government-sponsored social programs that benefit them. Throughout the Caribbean, there is a relationship between of race, gender and inequality. The skin tone of an individual along with the physical features of an individual is used to determine an individual's race. Race during the early days of European colonization was used to determine one's opportunity in life. During the early years, to participate in election you had to own property. This was difficult for the African race, which was heavily involved in slavery. This made the opportunity to achieve scholastic qualification difficult. This made the black ex-slaves a resident in the doldrums of poverty. Ex-slaves or free slaves were ultimately laborers for life and never considered owners of any aspects of production. Inequality within the Caribbean society during slavery and during the pre- and post-era of the abolition era remained the same. Changes in how the blacks were treated never occurred until the mid-1950s. The height of social marginalization and stratification existed in the Caribbean during the 1950s. Many descendants of slavery and those who were considered free but black had to struggle to achieve equal and equitable treatment from those who managed and organized the society. Social marginalization was prominent. In every aspect of life, black individuals had to struggle for respect, education, social status and equity in the distribution of social amenities. Social class was defined. Each social class had an attitude of excluding or including individuals based on several criteria. Today this socialized behavior still exists. The difference between social classes cannot however be determined by social marginalization. Social marginalization encourages social stratification within any given society. This occurrence exists throughout the Caribbean. Throughout the Caribbean, varied groups are considered marginalized. Varied race and gender are the most pronounced marginalized groups of individuals. In countries like Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana, the issue of race and ethnicity either foster inclusion or exclusion within social gatherings. This social issue encourages inequality in how they are treated throughout society. This social construct is regarded by many as a phenomenon predominated by a minority group. The needs, desire and achievements are usually ignored by the general society, especially those who are considered the movers and shakers of a specific society. It is important for you to recognize that one can be within a specific social class and marginalized by your own group. Social stratification is defined as a system by which society ranks categories of people in a hierarchy. This hierarchy is most based on a claimed social status. This status comes with wealth, accumulation of assets, lifestyle and associated. This hierarchy fosters inequality amongst when compared to other social groups. An average is used to group individuals in varied social classes. With this in mind, many individuals find themselves in a category, class, but is considered marginally or provisionally in that same group by group members. How one becomes wealthy can be an important marker, which determines the group's total acceptance as a member. This marker helps to better scrutinize members of the social group. A wealthy family may be classified as an upper-class group, however they marginalize another family who exists within the same group. This marginalization may occur due to the how. The how in this case is how did they accumulate their wealth? If your family has been wealthy for several generations based on business ventures and risk taken, more respect would be given to them. If one's family became wealthy based on success in the drug trade, fraud, lotto or unknown means, the respect for that family would not have been that great. Social marginalization becomes evident within this upper-class social group. Although the second family is considered wealthy and included as a member of the upper social class, within this social class, this family will be marginalized or excluded by the other members of this group. It is a very complex issue when one tries to explain the dynamics of social groups throughout any given society. There are several unwritten rules and regulations. The issue of inequality exists in every aspect of our society. To complicate the issue of equality more, race and gender are both added. Many families throughout the Caribbean are facing an identity crisis. The acceptance of international media within the home has strongly influenced the acceptance of varied races. This acceptance has facilitated a psychological issue referred to by many psychologists as inferiority complex. Many black Caribbean nationals are of the belief that their skin tone are of inferior quality and have resorted to the bleaching and disfiguring of their skin. Both females and males have attempted to adjust their future ancestral lineage by procreating with persons with lighter skin or white. This procreative move is not a matter of love, rather it is primarily aimed at making their offspring brown, fair or white in skin tone. This move has led to many unions becoming dissolved or violent. This is partly due to the fact that many persons have entered into these unions for the wrong reasons. Regardless of the powerful struggle in which the region has undergone in an effort to have self-governance, respect and a society independent from colonial rule, many people are still hoping that they can be members of a society now managed by our colonial masters. On average, thousands of Caribbean members migrate to North America and Europe each year. The acceptance of the Caribbean as their home and their race as superior or just as good as any other seems minute. The greatest wish for most Caribbean nationalists to migrate to a developed country and live their dream. the tentative inequality and inequity in which they may undergo, should their desire become fruitful, does not daunt their dream of migrating. They view the ways of the developed country as good and deem the ways of the Caribbean societies as poorly structured. The aggressive nature which once existed amongst black slaves when they desired to fight for their freedom prior to the emancipation of slavery is now minuscule when comparison is made regarding to the need to fight for equality and equity throughout the region for all. Throughout the Caribbean, race is an issue of importance. The diverse symbolic meaning associated with varied racial practices throughout the Caribbean has garnered much interest by international sociologists. The music, dress, language, religion and family life of the Caribbean have assisted in shaping a unique Caribbean race. The Caribbean mirrors several dances, music, language, family and religion practiced throughout the world. The Caribbean is made up of predominantly descendants of slavery, Africans, blacks, and indentureship, Chinese, Japanese and Indians. The ancestors of the Caribbean not only have a common inherent culture but in many instances share common ethnic heritage. There are pointed sociological views on ethnicity and race. Functionalist, conflict and internationalist sociological theories all have interesting throughout on this topic. Herbert Spencer, who was an English philosopher and social theorist, made several underlying points regarding the functionalist view on race and ethnicity. Some of these points are that race and ethnicity are two important constituent elements of a society. It is believed that they both contributed to a society's relatively smooth functioning. It is the general functionalist view that race and ethnicity is important in creating a social equilibrium. It is believed that neither race nor ethnicity contribute to power, inequalities or racial conflict. Based on the above points, we can now assume that structural functionalism generally stresses the unifying role of culture. It is ill-equipped to understand divisive forces like discrimination. The feminist and conflict theory also cited several interesting thoughts on race and ethnicity also. According to the feminist theory of intersectionality, it was suggested that different biological, social, and cultural categories, such as race, ethnicity, and gender, interact and intersect to form a system of oppression. It is believed that since the social, political, and cultural upheavals of the 1960s, there has been a wellspring of conflict theory-inspired analyses of race and ethnicity. Race, ethnicity and inherent culture contribute greatly to the conflicts which exist in societies today. W.E.B. Du Bois theorized that the intersectional paradigms of race, class, and nation might explain certain aspects of black political economy. Black economy is Boyd's social stratification which hinges on ethnic and racial values. It the belief of several sociologists that various biological, social, and cultural factors such as gender, race, class, and ethnicity interact and contribute towards social inequality, marginalization and social stratification. Interactionist sociological theory suggested that race and ethnicity is a social process. It is suggested that in every society a race is dominant. This social process continues as a cycle. The races which are less dominant usually separate themselves into several niches. Within these niches individuals share similar social characteristics. Each individual faces similar social pressure. Although they are considered less dominant, they still seek means of evolving into the dominant group. The acceptance in the dominant group is another issue. This brings to the forefront the issue of marginalization and social stratification. The symbolic interactionists consider race and ethnicity as strong symbols of society's identity. In fact, some interactionist proposes that the symbols of race, not race itself, are what lead to racism. They believed that racial prejudice is formed through interactions between members of the dominant group and members of the minority group. The symbolic interactionist argues that without the interactions between varied groups, race, individuals in the dominant group would not hold racist views. These interactions contribute to an abstract picture of the subordinate group that allows the dominant group to support its view of the subordinate group, thus maintaining the status quo. It is believed that the intermingling of varied races is facilitated by the popular media. Popular media aid in the transfer of common beliefs and practices throughout many societies including the Caribbean. Many individuals throughout the Caribbean region have shaped their life to resemble those they view within the mass media. To a great extent the mass media have thwarted the inherent culture of many Caribbean societies, changing how people relate to each other. To a great extent the media have led to the change in views of women's role in society. These views have been widely accepted by many Caribbean societies. Throughout many societies including the Caribbean, gender plays an integral part in social planning. In the early years, women held no office of importance. The emergence of women in areas of importance came during the surge of occupational revolution during the era of Industrial Revolution. The era of Industrial Revolution saw the discovery of electricity and the creation of new career opportunities. Prior to the era of industrialization, society was predominantly patriarchal. The man was the head of the house. The man was the breadwinner of the home. The man was the disciplinarian. The woman was submissive to the man. The feminist movement of the early 1900s saw the thrust to empower women throughout society. Women sought legitimacy in society. Women yearned for greater respect by the general society which was controlled by men. They, women, sought to revolutionize the social norms which held men as leaders of society. Coupled with several ideologies, Karl Marx the feminist demanded social change with regards to how women are treated. Throughout the Caribbean the thrust for women to play integral roles in region became popular and was accepted by many including men. The issue of gender inequality is a universal one. The United Nations International Bill of Human Rights sought to provide strengthens and extends the rights of women throughout the world. The Human Rights Bill declared by the United Nations in the 1960s gave women and men equal rights and responsibilities. The rights of each individual are not hinged on the sexual. Many policy changes were drafted after this groundbreaking bill was passed. Several countries throughout the world took the initiative to change their policies regarding to the role women played in their society. Today in the Caribbean, women have been playing assertive roles in politics, religion and families. Women are now considered equal on par with men. This has been an evolutionary journey as they escape the era of a patriarchy society. There has been a shift in the occupational choices granted to women throughout the Caribbean. Women have now been encouraged to venture into areas once dominated by men. Regardless of their efforts, however, many women find it difficult to secure the same benefits and rewards granted to men in varied occupational positions throughout the Caribbean. Men and women may do the same work, however they are in many instances paid differently. Women are considered as educated but not work-ready by many employers. This position taken by many employers are regarded as discrimination. If known to the policymakers or enforcers of the law, these employers can face strict sanctions. Many females have accepted this position taken by employers due to their inability to secure similar employment elsewhere. In conclusion of this paper, several assumptions can be made regarding inequality, race and gender throughout the Caribbean. Throughout the Caribbean, inequality is a social issue which fosters social marginalization and stratification. Sociological theorists have indicated within their varied theories, that the issue of race, inequality and gender affects every society regardless of the acclaimed status, rich or poor. It is believed that the absence of a classless society encourages conflict. Another theory suggested that society should be consensual in determining the criteria for varied classes. The issue of gender relations has been the thrust of the conflict and feminist theorist. They both believe women have value to add to the development of society. The Caribbean has shown signs of women liberation and has adopted policies passed by the United Nations which seeks to end discrimination against women. Women throughout the Caribbean have become assertive and progressive in politics, religion, business and family since this liberation movement in the mid-1960s. Finally, amongst the masses, whiteness is still associated with prosperity and blackness with penury, poverty. It is strongly believed by many sociologists that the above stated have been the main factor which has encouraged many black Caribbean nationals to actually bleach their skin. It is the view of many that the clearer the complexion, the higher one is viewed within the social ladder of society. Children are taught from early that they should strive to get a brown or white mate which would automatically propel him or her upward the social ladder or class. Race, Gender and social stratification all plays a unique role in the shaping of the Caribbean culture.